Okay, today we're going to be talking about section 4.6. Yesterday I introduced radicals and how to simplify basic radicals. Today we're actually going to be solving quadratic equations by finding the square roots of them. So what is the opposite of a power? The opposite of a power we know is going to be a root. Roots and powers are opposites of each other, which means the opposite of x squared is the square root of x. There is a 2 understood to be there. It does not have to be there. It's understood to be there, okay? Next, I have the cube root, or I should say x cubed is the cube root. They are opposites of each other. So if I have x to the 5th, that's the same thing as the 5th root of x. X to the 10th, we're going to say that's the 10th root of x. They are opposites of each other, so we want to always make sure we're utilizing the opposites. I should not have equal there. Okay, so yesterday we talked about this. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, and so forth, all the way to 16 squared is 256. What I need your brain to understand is that if I take the square root, of 9, that gives me 3. The square root of 89 or 81 is 9. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 225 is 15. Now, those numbers are what your brain needs to go back and forth with. An example of how to solve quadratic equations with square roots. So let's solve this equation straight out. How do I get rid of this plus 10? I'm going to do that by subtracting 10. So that's 4x squared is equal to 36. So now, how do I get rid of the 4? I'm going to simply divide by 4 on both sides. And I'm going to get x squared is equal to 9. Now, the opposite of a power is a root. So now I'm going to take the square root. So that means x is equal to, as soon as you use the square root symbol, put the plus or minus symbol there, and you have 3. There's your answer. Let's do it again. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So I have 3x squared is equal to 30. Divide by 3, and I have x squared is equal to 10. Take the square root of both sides, and when you take the square root, you automatically put plus or minus. There are no perfect square factors of 10. It's just 2 and 5 and 1 and 10. So I'm done at plus or minus the square root of 10. Next, 2x squared minus 35 is equal to 13. I'm going to go ahead and add 35. So I have 2x squared is equal to 48. Divide by 2. X squared is equal to 24. Take the square root of both sides. X is equal to plus or minus. Now, you have to simplify this, which means you want your factor tree, okay? So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to type in the number 24 in your factor finder. I'm looking for the factors that are perfect squares. The largest one up there that's a perfect square is simply going to be 4 and 6. So this is going to give me 4 times 6. That 4 comes out as a 2, so x is equal to plus or minus 2 square roots of 6. That is done, and that's what I expect you to do on tonight's homework. So pretty much, I've shown you how to do problems 1 through 6 on tonight's homework. It's pretty easy, no big deal, right? Okay, the next thing that we need to talk about is completing the square formula. So I give you x squared plus bx plus b over 2 is equal to x plus b over 2 quantity squared. That's the completing the square formula. What do I mean by that? Well, here's what your brain needs to understand. X plus 3 quantity squared, I'm going to name that to be William. That squared right here means that there are 2 of those. So I'm going to write that down twice. I'm going to now name that to be Willie. William and Willie are the same person. X plus 3 squared is the same thing as x plus 3 times x plus 3. Well, instinctively, when you guys see that, you want to FOIL that to give you this. X squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9 is equal to Will. Still all exactly the same thing, but they all look vastly different. Then the next thing is you want to actually combine like terms. When I combine like terms, I'm going to get 6x in the middle, and I'm going to call Will now Bill. What I'm trying to get your brain to understand is that the bottom one is essentially equal to the top one. How are they equal? I need to go from the bottom straight to the top of x plus 3 quantity squared. So how do we do that? Well, what we do is we take our b term, which is 6, and divide it by 2. And that gives me a 3. squared gives me the 9. So this is your B term. This is your C term. This right here is where the perfect square comes into play. So how do we go about doing that? Well, let's go ahead and start some of these. X squared plus 4x plus what? Well, we're going to take our B value and divide it by 2. So that's going to be 4 over 2. 4 over 2 is going to be 2. Squared is going to be 4. That's what goes there. But this is actually equal to x, take this middle sign right here, plus take this value right here, 2, quantity squared. So let's do that again. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my B value and divide it by 2. That's 16 divided by 2, which is 8. I'm going to square that, and that gives me 64. The 64 goes there. But what I actually want to write is going to be x, taking this middle sign and taking the number before I squared it. That's going to be a minus 8, quantity squared. Do it again. We're going to take our B value, divide it by 2, so that's 36 divided by 2. That's going to be 18 squared, and 18 times 18 is going to be, I did not memorize that, so I have to do that. 18 times 18 is equal to 324. And that's what goes in that blank. But remember, I need this sign with this number, and that's going to give me the x minus the 18 quantity squared. The last one there, I'm going to have b divided by 2, so that's going to be 3 over 2. Squared is going to give me 9/4. 9/4 goes here, but remember, you have to put this to both the numerator and the denominator. That's why the 3 squared and the 2 is squared to give me the 9/4. That means I'm going to have an x, take the middle sign, and then I'm going to have 3 over 2 quantity squared. So basically, I've just shown you how to do problems 7 through 16. On the homework. So let's try this 3 more times to make sure that you understand what you're doing. 18 divided by 2 is going to be 9. Squared is 81. So that gives you the x minus the 9 squared. Next one, 14 divided by 2 gives you 7. 7 squared gives you 49. So 49 goes here, and this is going to be x, take the middle term, plus 7 squared. Down here, I'm going to have 7 divided by 2. Squared is going to give me 49 over 4. Give me x, and take the middle term, 7 over 2 squared. Okay? So again, that's how you guys are going to do problems 7 through 16. Okay? Next is the last part. It's working backwards, and now I want you to find the middle term. Well, that's super easy because what your brain is always doing here is you're factoring this into 2 binomials, right? But we know they're perfect squares. So the square root of 1 and the square root of 100, that's going to give you 1x and 1x, 10 and 10. And I need a positive, but I take the middle sign, so therefore it's going to be minus, minus. So inside gives me 10x, outer gives me negative 10x to give me negative 20x. But I already have the negative, and I already have the x, so that means k is simply equal to 20. Let's do that again. Same exact thing. Same exact thing, okay? Remember what I did. I took the square root of this, and I took the square root of this. So that's going to be an x and an x. I need to have plus, plus. Why? Because I have my middle term is plus. The square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4 is 2. Inner gives me 1/2 x. Outer gives me 1/2 x. Half a candy bar plus a half a candy bar is a whole candy bar. So that means k is simply equal to 1. Okay, let's do this again. Last example I'm going to do. Same exact thing. So I'm going to have 2 sets of parentheses here. I'm going to take the square root of 4 to give me 2x and 2x. I'm going to take the square root of 25 to give me 5 and 5. I'm going to look at the middle term. That middle term is going to be minus, minus. Inner gives me negative 10x. Outer gives me negative 10x. When I add those together, I get negative 20x. I'm going to look to see what I already have. I already have the negative, and I already have the x. So that implies that k is equal to the value 20. Tonight's homework is for 6 worksheet 1, solving quadratics using square roots.